What does a billionaire on the verge of sealing a $100 million deal have in common with the waitress refilling his glass? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. At least, that's what Gideon Sterling believed, until the world he thought he knew cracked open. He was perched at Aurelia, one of New York's most exclusive temples of wealth, ready to cement a breakthrough that could redefine green energy. Contracts spread across the table, pen poised, and then, unseen, she entered his orbit. Clara Razi, with her weary eyes and a past drenched in secrets, held the one truth that could either preserve his empire or obliterate it in an instant. He was about to sign. Then her voice cut through the pristine tension of the room, barely above a whisper, yet sharp as a scalpel. That's the wrong formula. The air in Aurelia was heavy, not with garlic or wine, but with the intoxicating scent of generational power, truffle oil, polished leather, and money whispered into existence for centuries. Clara inhaled it nightly, gliding between tables like a ghost in black, invisible yet omnipresent, her life distilled into the gleam of mahogany and crystal. Tonight, Table 12 was the epicenter of this universe, the unofficial throne of Manhattan's glittering elite, and at its head, the king, Gideon Sterling. Clara knew the legend, MIT prodigy, founder of Sterling Dynamics, now a titan at 38, his sharp jaw and stormy eyes demanding the attention of anyone in the room. Bespoke Tom Ford suit, aura of barely contained energy. He didn't just occupy the space, he owned it. Seated beside him, two men in expensive suits, cautious, deferential, Mr. Davenport, silver-haired scion of a banking dynasty, and Kenji Tanaka, a Tokyo venture capitalist. But Clara's eyes were drawn elsewhere. Dr. Simon Kendrick, Sterling's R&D mastermind, chest puffed with the glow of his own brilliance. She refilled their glasses, practiced and unseen, the silent observer. Every motion precise, every word overheard, yet unrecorded, until now. The efficiency is unprecedented, Gideon said, almost dismissing Kendrick's pride. The Sterling-Kendrick catalyst will cut electrolysis costs by 60%. This isn't incremental, it's a revolution. Green hydrogen cheaper than natural gas. He tapped a sleek black tablet. Show them the core equation, Simon. The part that matters. Kendrick uncapped a pen, grabbed a linen napkin, a sacrilege in Aurelia, and began to write. Clara's chest tightened. Memories clawed back. Whiteboards, quantum mechanics, breakthroughs that once defined her, now buried under 6 years of betrayal, grief, and servitude in black. She tried to look away, focusing on the condensation on the pitcher, but her eyes betrayed her. The elegant flowing script of the napkin pulled her in. Kendrick explained with patronizing simplicity. We maximize proton quantum tunneling, manipulate electron spin in the platinum-iridium lattice. This equation governs catalytic efficiency. It's patent gold. He slid the napkin forward. Davenport and Tanaka nodded with polite incomprehension, but Sterling studied it with razor intensity. And the PSI function? He asked. Stable across all conditions? Kendrick smiled, smug. Proprietary. My own secret sauce. Clara froze. Hand trembling with the weight of the pitcher, gaze locked on the final term. Pusque S. Every symbol, every integral, every painstaking derivation from her PhD years resurfaced, threatening to unravel everything she thought was buried. The world around Clara Rossi dissolved. The clink of cutlery, the low murmur of Manhattan elites, even the glittering cityscape beyond the windows, vanished. She was suddenly back in a dusty university lab, the scent of ozone and stale coffee filling her lungs. Marker-dusted fingers, whiteboard filled with equations, and the sharp voice of Professor Albright echoing as she argued her breakthrough, her proof, her masterpiece. And it was catastrophically wrong. She remembered the subtle miscalculation in the electron density variable, SOKU, discovered just a week before her thesis defense. Corrected. And the reaction didn't just falter under high pressure, it became a volatile, explosive liability. She had warned Albright. He had dismissed her. 2 weeks later, he published her flawed research as his own, crediting Dr. Kendrick, his postdoc protege. Her name had vanished from the page. The academic board sided with tenure, her career buried under threats she couldn't contest. 6 years later, her ghost had returned, Not in the lab, but on a napkin in Aurelia, poised over $100 million time bomb. Clara's breath caught. Investors nodded. Gideon Sterling reached for the contracts Mr. Davenport had slid across the polished table. The Mont Blanc pen gleamed in his hand. Seconds from signature. She could stay silent. Watch disaster unfold. Just a waitress. Fired, blacklisted. Who would believe her? But in her mind, the headline screamed, Sterling Dynamics plant explosion kills dozens. She imagined Kendrick's smug face, a man profiting from a lethal lie. The old fire, extinguished by grief and survival, blazed back to life. Gideon Sterling uncapped the pen. The click echoed like a gunshot in her ears. She moved, feet ghosting across the plush carpet, leaned over his shoulder, stone-faced in the guise of professional service. "Mr. Sterling," she whispered, lips inches from his ear. "Don't sign. That's the wrong formula." Time didn't stop, but Gideon's world did. Data, control, and predictability shattered in a fraction of a second. A waitress, anonymous, invisible, was issuing a quantum-level warning. His hand froze above the signature line. Millimeters. His mind resisted. Hallucination? Impossible. He half-turned, stormy eyes locked on her. A young woman, late 20s, dark, intelligent eyes, certainty radiating from her being. No prank, no madness, only an undeniable truth. "What did you just say?" His voice low, dangerous, rumbling beneath the formalities of power. The table shifted. Mr. Davenport lowered his glasses, polite concern faltering. "Is there a problem, Gideon?" Clara stood her ground, heart hammering, yet professional poise unshaken. She had crossed a line, no retreat. "My apologies, sir," she said, voice quiet yet precise. "I misspoke." She started to retreat, instinct screaming survival, but Sterling didn't relent. Billionaires aren't made by ignoring anomalies. "No," he said, voice sharp enough to cut glass. "You didn't misspeak." "Say it again," Dr. Kendrick scoffed, indignation cracking his mask. "Gideon, what is this?" The staff is interrupting. His venomous glare landed on Clara, already spelling termination before she reached the kitchen. Clara's eyes flickered to Kendrick, and in them, Gideon Sterling saw something he hadn't expected. Not fear, but contempt. The look of someone who had outgrown subordination. She met Gideon's gaze again. "The final term," she whispered, low and precise. "The probability function for the tunneling event, Pucius. It's incorrectly defined. It ignores relativistic effects on the electron shell at high energies. It assumes static electron density. It's not static." The alcove fell into complete silence. Mr. Davenport and Mr. Tanaka exchanged bewildered glances. Quantum mechanics wasn't their language. Dollars were. Kendrick's smug triumph drained from his face. He stared at Clara as if she were a specter. That's absurd. Who are you to question my work? This is cutting-edge research." "It's stolen research," she said, the words spilling before she could stop them. Restraint shattered. "And the person you stole it from discovered the error 6 years ago. Under pressure, the catalyst won't just underperform, it will destabilize. The entire reaction will cascade. You're not building a green energy solution, Dr. Kendrick. You're building a bomb." Each word struck true. Gideon Sterling's eyes narrowed, moving from Clara's resolute face to Kendrick's panic-stricken one. Kendrick was sweating, a single bead rolling down his temple. His mouth opened, but only a strangled sound emerged. That tremor of fear was more damning than any confession. Gideon deliberately capped his Mont Blanc pen. The click reverberated like a gunshot. He placed it neatly beside the unsigned contract. "Gentlemen," he said to his investors, calm as a storm passing, "we'll pause to verify a technical query. My apologies for the interruption. Please enjoy a dessert on me. Simon," he snapped at Kendrick, "stay here." He rose, commanding the space. His gaze fell on Clara. "You, with me." Now, no answer awaited. He strode out, expecting her to follow. Clara felt countless eyes on her as she set the pitcher down, moving with mechanical grace. Francois, her perpetually stressed manager, power walked toward her, thundercloud over his face. "Rossi, what do you think you're doing?" he hissed. Gideon Sterling's voice cut across the dining room, calm, yet impossible to ignore. She's with me, Francois. Add any damages to my bill. Frozen Francois gaped. Clara straightened her apron, inhaled deeply, and followed the billionaire out into the cool Manhattan night, leaving behind the deal and her old life. The Maybach glided silently through neon-lit streets. Plush leather cocooned them, the city's chaos muted. Opposite him, Clara sat, uniform stark against cream upholstery, feeling Gideon's analytical gaze dissecting her. Only in the private elevator to Sterling Dynamics headquarters did he speak. What's your name? Isa Clara Rossi. And you're a waitress. Not a question. An observation he needed to reconcile with the impossible. For 5 years, yes, and before that, the elevator doors opened into a minimalist office, floor-to-ceiling windows framing Manhattan like a god's domain. A single massive obsidian desk dominated the center. Clara hesitated, ghosts of her past swirling around her. Before that, I was a doctoral candidate in computational chemistry at Caltech. Gideon Sterling stopped, turning to face her fully. A flicker of recognition crossed his face. Caltech? Who was your advisor? Dr. Marcus Albright. The name landed like a quiet thunderclap. Gideon knew him. Albright, a luminary in academia, often collaborating with private industry. I've read his work, Gideon said slowly, including his 2019 paper on proton transfer catalysis. The one co-authored with a postdoc, Simon Kendrick. Clara's silence confirmed it. The air crackled with unspoken implications. That paper, Gideon continued, voice dangerously soft, formed the theoretical backbone of our green hydrogen project. 80 million in R&D invested, based on a flawed premise. Clara lifted her chin, voice steady now. A flaw I reported to Albright a week before he published. He stole my thesis, removed my name, and published it with Kendrick. Gideon's mind raced, piecing together the story. The ambitious professor, the eager postdoc, the brilliant but naive graduate. A tale as old as academia itself. Why didn't you fight it? His tone was not accusation, but genuine inquiry. With what? Her laugh was brittle. I was 24, $50,000 in debt. He was tenured, fully backed by the university. Their lawyers would have buried me, so I did the only thing I could. I vanished. He led her to a conference room adjacent to his office, with a tap, a glass wall frosted over, rendering them private. He gestured to the long table. Clara seated herself. He remained standing, pacing like a predator. Tonight, at that table, I was about to commit $100 million from investors, leveraging my company on that formula, he said, thinking aloud. If you're right, you saved not just my money, but my company from catastrophe. If you're wrong, you're a lunatic who just cost me everything. He leaned on the table, face inches from hers. So, Isa Clara Rossi, former Caltech prodigy, how certain are you? 100%, she said, without hesitation. The math doesn't lie. Dr. Kendricks does prove it. For the next hour, Gideon Sterling grilled her. Not just a businessman, his background in physics and engineering gave him the tools to push her, to seek cracks in her knowledge. He threw complex problems, citing obscure principles in quantum electrodynamics and material science. She found none. Freed from her waitress facade, Clara came alive. Spin-orbit coupling, relativistic quantum chemistry, limitations of the Born-Oppenheimer approximation, she articulated them all. Whiteboard filled, equations flowing, her handwriting precise and confident. The tired waitress had vanished, replaced by a razor-sharp scientist. Gideon watched, awe slowly forming, quickly curdling into cold fury directed at Kendrick. As she derived the corrected PSI function, Gideon's phone buzzed, a text from Mr. Davenport. Gideon, what the hell is going on? Kendrick just left the restaurant looking like he'd seen a ghost. Tanaka is ready to walk, Gideon typed a quick reply. Minor snag. Sit tight, I'll handle it. He looked at Clara, calculated respect in his gaze. All right, Miss Rossi. You've convinced me. There's a fire. I need you to find the arsonist. Full access to our R&D servers, raw data, simulation logs, Kendrick's private files. I want undeniable proof he knew. The smoking gun? He paused, gaze unwavering. My company is now in your hands. Can you do it? Clara stared at her equations on the whiteboard, now illuminated by possibility. Vindication? Justice? A future reclaimed? Yes, she said, voice ringing with conviction she hadn't felt in 6 long years. I can. The Sterling Dynamics R&D lab was a stark contrast to the opulent executive suite. It was a cathedral of science, sprawling, sterile, humming with the quiet power of supercomputers, bathed in the blue glow of holographic displays. For Clara, stepping inside was like inhaling after years underwater. The scent of ionized air and clean room solvents was a perfume she had almost forgotten. Gideon Sterling led her to a restricted terminal inside a glass-walled office. This was Kendrick's primary workstation, he said, his voice taut with restrained anger. You'll have my personal override, level 1 clearance, nothing is hidden from you. He tapped his card and pressed his thumb to the biometric scanner. With a soft chime, the system unlocked. The screen flickered to life, displaying complex molecular models and torrents of data. My head of security, Gavin, is a ghost in the system. He'll prevent Kendrick from wiping anything remotely, but Kendrick is clever. If he's hiding something, it's buried deep, Gideon continued. I have to placate my investors. I'm buying you time. Use it wisely. He left. Silence enveloped the lab, broken only by server fans whispering. For a moment, Clara felt paralyzed by the scale of the task, sifting through a mountain of data the size of the Library of Congress for a single hidden needle. Then, the researcher in her took over. She ignored Kendrick's conclusions and dove straight into the raw sensor data from the experimental catalytic reactor. Here lay the truth, untainted, unmanipulated, hours blurred. Clara forgot she was a waitress in a worn uniform. She was a scientist on the hunt. Terabytes compiled, fingers flew across the holographic keyboard, her mind navigating complex data structures with precision and speed. The first discrepancy appeared at 3 a.m. A 6-month-old simulation log. The official report, signed by Kendrick, claimed perfect stable energy output. But the machine-level log revealed a different story. At peak pressure, for a single nanosecond, a massive uncontrolled gamma spike had erupted, exactly as her corrected formula predicted. Got you, she whispered to the empty lab. The simulation hadn't failed. A sophisticated subroutine had isolated the anomaly, labeling it as a sensor error, and allowed the test to continue under modified parameters. The report, a carefully constructed lie. Reality had been erased. Clara traced the subroutine. Its digital signature was unique, recurring across dozens of simulations. The same hidden flaw, the same automatic data scrub. Kendrick hadn't erred. He had deliberately concealed instability for over a year. As dawn crept over the city, pale gray light spilling across the lab, Clara found the next piece of the puzzle, a folder buried deep in the operating system kernel named M.A. Contingency. M.A. Marcus Albright, her former professor. Her blood ran cold. AES 256. Encryption shielded it, a digital vault, impenetrable without the key. Her mind raced. What could it be? A password, a phrase, something personal to Kendrick and Albright? Memories of lab days surfaced. Her professor, obsessed with physics legends, often quoting one in particular. Raffinier ist der Herr Gott, aber boshaft ist nicht. Subtle is the Lord, but malicious he is not. With trembling fingers, Clara typed the German phrase into the decryption prompt. She pressed enter. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the screen blinked. Decryption successful. The folder opened. Only 2 files. The first was a financial ledger, a chain of untraceable cryptocurrency payments from a Cayman Islands holding company to Dr. Simon Kendrick's account. Total, $5 million. The holding company's name sent a chill down her spine. Omnigene, Richard Hayes' company. Sterling Dynamics' fiercest rival. The second file, a short audio recording. Clara clicked it. The office filled with Kendrick's unmistakable voice, speaking to Richard Hayes. The deal is set for tomorrow night, Kendrick said, conspiratorial. Sterling will sign. Investors locked in. Once the Arizona plant breaks ground, we tip off the EPA anonymously, show them the instability. Sterling Dynamics buried, stock collapses. You acquire their patent portfolio, including the real stable formula, for pennies. A pause. Hayes' smooth, predatory tone. And the stable formula? You have it? Of course, Kendrick replied. Then the words hit Clara like a physical blow. Albright's little protege figured it out years ago, before he pushed her out. He's been sitting on it ever since. Corrected PS, I function, artwork, adjusting sigma for relativistic effects, a small change, massive impact. Clara sank into the chair, breath stolen. Sabotage, corporate espionage, theft, not once, but twice. Kendrick wasn't just hiding a flaw. He planned to sell the cure after destroying the company. She saved the audio and ledger to a secure drive. Smoking gun acquired. Arsenal ready. Then an alert flashed. Security warning. Unauthorized level 1 access detected. Sector 7. G. Someone else had her clearance level, not Gideon's credentials, Kendrick's. He was supposed to be locked out. And then she saw it. A remote deletion command targeting the kernel directory with the encrypted folder. He was trying to erase the evidence. Gavin, Gideon's security chief, would intervene, but every second counted. Files could vanish forever. Without hesitation, Clara triggered a system-wide lockdown using Gideon's override. Network access to all R&D servers cut. Even her terminal would go offline, but Kendrick wouldn't get a chance. A new warning. Physical breach alert. Restricted lab level 3 proximity sensor triggered. Someone was in the building, coming, and Clara was trapped with the only copies of the evidence that could destroy them. The server's hum was drowned by a metallic thump, a magnetic lock sealing her in. Sanctuary had become a trap. Her heart pounded. Adrenaline, cold and sharp, surged through her veins. Kendrick wasn't just hacking remotely. He had accessed the building, physical keycard or overlooked passcode. He was coming to annihilate the evidence. The lab offered no weapons, no hiding spots. Glass walls, glowing machines. Main door, thick reinforced steel. Security panel's red light blinked. Access denied. System lockdown. From the hallway came muffled shouts, frantic beeps as Kendrick tried keycard after keycard. Locked out. But for how long? A man willing to commit industrial sabotage wouldn't be deterred by a door. Clara's mind, trained for complexity, kicked into overdrive. Thumb drive secure in her pocket. Original files isolated. But if Kendrick reached the terminal, the machine, and all evidence could be destroyed. She needed a plan. And fast. Clara raced back to the workstation. The lockdown severed all connections. No phone, no internet. But she still had control of the internal network. She pulled up the building schematics. The lab was part of a sprawling research wing, a labyrinth of clean rooms, server farms, and testing chambers. The lockdown had sealed everything, but there might be another way out. Her eyes locked on a service corridor, a maintenance hatch for coolant pipe access. Small, cramped, but it led into the building's ventilation system. A crazy movie plot idea, but the only one she had. From the hallway came a new sound, a high-pitched whirring, a drill. Kendrick was trying to bypass the lock. Time was running out. She found the hatch behind a massive server rack. 4 heavy bolts secured it. Using a metal stool as leverage, she threw all her weight into turning them. Her muscles, trained for trays, not industrial bolts, screamed, but one by one, the bolts yielded. The hatch swung open, revealing a dark, dusty shaft just wide enough to crawl through. Cool, recycled air washed over her face. She hesitated, then hoisted herself inside, pulling the panel closed behind her. Total darkness. The air smelled of dust and machine oil. She was inside the skyscraper's guts. Using her phone as a flashlight, signal dead, battery nearly gone, she crawled. The drill's whirring faded, replaced by the deep hum of the building's life support. The schematics guided her. Left at the first junction, then right, past a massive air circulation fan. Claustrophobic, terrifying, but the thumb drive in her pocket was a talisman. She aimed for a vertical shaft she hoped would lead to unsecured floors. Her mind replayed the audio. Albright's little protege figured it out years ago. The cruelty of it fueled her resolve. This wasn't just about Gideon Sterling's company. It was about reclaiming her name. Suddenly her phone went black. Battery dead. Darkness absolute. The fan's hum seemed louder, menacing. Panic crept in. She was blind, lost, 60 stories above ground. She forced slow breaths, feeling the airflow, relying on memory. After what felt like hours, her hand hit a ladder. Relief surged. She began climbing, hands and knees scraped raw. 2 floors down, her foot landed on a solid surface. An access panel. She pushed it open, dim office lights spilled in. She tumbled onto the deserted floor, covered in dust and grease, uniform torn. Dark cubicles stretched around her. A sales department. She'd escaped the lockdown zone. She ran for the emergency stairwell, echoing footsteps in cavernous silence. 2 floors at a time, she descended. At the ground-level lobby, she saw Gideon Sterling, flanked by 2 imposing security guards, arguing with night shift staff. He looked frantic, composure gone. "Miss Rossi! Isa Clara!" he shouted, panic and relief mixing in his voice as she emerged. Exhausted but triumphant, Clara held up the black thumb drive. "I have it, Mr. Sterling," she gasped. "Everything." As he took it, the lobby elevator chimed. Doors slid open. Dr. Simon Kendrick stood inside, pale, suit disheveled, hands greasy, clutching a portable drill. His eyes widened. He saw Clara with Gideon, then the drive in his boss's hand, then her face. In that single silent moment, he knew. His desperate gamble had failed. He made a sound, a choked guttural cry of rage, and lunged, not at Gideon Sterling or the drive, but for Clara. Pure instinct, pure hatred. An attempt to destroy the one who had unraveled his carefully constructed world. But he never reached her. Gideon's security guards moved like lightning, intercepting him in a blur. They slammed him to the marble floor with a sickening thud. The drill clattered across the polished surface. The great Dr. Simon Kendrick, the man who almost duped the world, lay writhing and defeated on the lobby floor of the company he had tried to destroy. Gideon ignored the chaos. He looked at Clara, torn clothes, exhaustion etched into her features, and saw not a waitress, but a warrior. "Let's go finish this," he said, voice low, yet carrying the promise of reckoning. The emergency board meeting convened on the 60th floor, the very room Clara had entered hours before. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting dramatic shadows, though the mood was dark and stormy. Mr. Davenport and Kenji Tanaka sat at the long obsidian table, faces grim. Summoned by Gideon at pre-dawn with a cryptic alarming message, they looked exhausted, confused, skeptical. $100 million deal didn't pause for a waitress without consequences. Clara sat beside Gideon at the head of the table. She had declined a chance to clean up, keeping her torn, grimy uniform, a statement, a badge of honor for who she was when this began. The door opened. 2 of Gideon's security guards escorted in Dr. Kendrick, pale and haggard, wrists in silver handcuffs. He was seated at the far end, opposite Gideon. The silence bent steel. "Gentlemen," Gideon began, cold and precise, "I apologize for the dramatics of the past hours. A serious allegation was made against the integrity of our project. I investigated thoroughly before proceeding." He nodded to Clara. "This is Isa Clara Rossi. She brought this matter to my attention. She is also the true architect of the foundational theory our entire project is based upon Davenport." And Tanaka stared, disbelief mingled with dawning curiosity. "Preposterous," Kendrick spat, voice cracking. "She's a nobody, a disgruntled student trying to blackmail her way into a fortune." Gideon ignored him. Sliding a tablet to the table's center, he said, "Simon, you're right on one point. Miss Rossi is brilliant. She identified the flaw in your formula and found where you buried the evidence of your fraud." He tapped the tablet. A file directory appeared on the large screen. "As you can see," Gideon continued, icy, "Dr. Kendrick was not just incompetent, he was malicious. He knew the catalyst was unstable and deliberately programmed our simulation software to fake results and hide the danger. He played the audio file. Kendrick's conspiratorial voice filled the room, outlining the plot to bankrupt Sterling Dynamics and sell the corrected formula to Omnigene. When Richard Hayes' voice came on, Kenji Tanaka hissed sharply in anger. Omnigene had long been a thorn in his firm's side. Silence followed. Kendrick shrank in his chair, ashen. Mr. Davenport looked as if punched in the gut. "The $5 million in cryptocurrency has been traced," Gideon said calmly. Half went to Kendrick. The other half to his accomplice, Dr. Marcus Albright at Caltech, who provided the corrected formula, Miss Rossi's corrected formula, to be sold after my company was ruined. Kendrick finally broke. "He made me do it!" he shrieked, pointing a trembling cuffed hand at the speaker. "Hayes, he approached me. He knew about the flaw. Albright told him. They said Sterling was a fool, and I was wasting my talent. They offered me everything." His voice trailed into a pathetic sob. Gideon Sterling rose to his feet, his towering frame radiating cold, righteous fury. "You didn't just try to defraud my investors and me," he said, voice low and menacing as he advanced toward Kendrick. "You were willing to build a facility that could have exploded. You were willing to let people die to cover your tracks and cash in. The only reason that isn't happening is because of her," he gestured to Clara. "Because a woman you and Albright dismissed and tried to erase had more integrity in her little finger than you have in your entire body. She was working for minimum wage, cleaning up after people like you, yet she had the courage to speak up to prevent a catastrophe while you counted your blood money." He stopped directly in front of Kendrick. "You're not just fired, Simon. I'm going to personally fund the federal investigation into you, into Albright, and into Richard Hayes. I will spend whatever it takes to ensure you all spend the rest of your miserable lives in prison cells. Get him out of my sight." The guards hauled the weeping Kendrick to his feet and dragged him from the room. Gideon returned to the head of the table, turning to Davenport and Tanaka, whose expressions had shifted from skepticism to horrified respect. "Gentlemen," he said, tone businesslike again, "the Sterling Kendrick catalyst is dead." Yet his eyes found Clara, and a genuine admiring smile softened his features. "The Rossi catalyst is very much alive. Miss Rossi has given me her corrected formula. It's not just stable, it's 20% more efficient than even Kendrick's falsified data predicted. We are not back at square one. We are a light year ahead of where we thought we were." He picked up the contract portfolio, tore the signature page in half, then turned to his laptop. A new document projected onto the screen. A new partnership agreement. "This is a new deal," Gideon announced. "Sterling Dynamics is forming a subsidiary to oversee this technology. Rossi Sterling Innovations. Miss Rossi will be Chief Technology Officer, with a 25% equity stake and full creative control. That is my non-negotiable term." "Are we still in business?" Davenport and Kenji Tanaka exchanged looks. They studied the projections on the screen, then looked at Clara, the quiet waitress in a torn uniform who now held the keys to the future of green energy. Davenport broke into a grin. "Mr. Sterling," he said, extending his hand, not to Gideon, but across the table to Clara. "It would be an honor to invest in Miss Rossi's company." 6 months later, Isa Clara Rossi stood in a lab that made Sterling Dynamics' facility look like a high school chemistry classroom. The Rossi Sterling Innovation Center was proof of what Brilliance with resources could achieve. Sunlight streamed through 3-story windows, glinting off state-of-the-art equipment handpicked by Clara. She wore a crisp white lab coat over an elegant dress. The black waitress uniform was a distant memory. Her team of 20 elite scientists worked around her, faces alight with passion. The centerpiece, a gleaming pilot-scale catalytic reactor. Today was its first full-power activation. Gideon Sterling stood beside her, lab coat matching hers. Davenport and Tanaka observed from a glass-enclosed deck, faces beaming. "Ready, CTO Rossi?" Gideon asked, playful yet respectful. They were partners now, bound by mutual admiration and shared vision. "Ready, CEO Sterling," she replied confidently. She initiated the startup. Data streamed on the monitor: pressure, temperature, energy input, catalytic efficiency. The numbers climbed past old flawed projections, past even her corrected estimates. They settled at 78% efficiency. Gideon exhaled, eyes wide. "Clara, that's impossible." "The math doesn't lie," she said softly, echoing the words from that fateful night. Applause erupted from the observation deck. Clara felt profound peace. This was more than success. It was restoration. Later that day, Clara Rossi sat in her spacious, sunlit office, the one that had replaced Gideon Sterling's imposing obsidian suite. A framed napkin hung on her wall. Not the original from Aurelia, but a new one. On it, in her own handwriting, was the correct formula, the Rossi equation. The small subscript R for Rossi and the REL for the relativistic correction were a quiet testament to her victory. Her personal phone buzzed. It was a picture from her mother on a Mediterranean cruise, medical bills paid, health thriving. "Thinking of you, my brilliant daughter," the message read. A knock sounded at her door. It was Gideon. "I have some news you might find interesting," he said, holding out a tablet. The headline: Omnigen CEO Richard Hayes indicted in corporate espionage scandal. Former Professor Albright and scientist Kendrick to testify in exchange for reduced sentences. Justice. It wasn't abstract. It was real and deeply satisfying. "They deserved it," Clara said simply. "They did," Gideon agreed. He looked around her office at the woman she had become, or rather, the woman she had always been. "It's funny," he mused. "I went to that dinner to sign a $100 million deal. I thought I was buying a formula, but it turns out I found something infinitely more valuable." "And what's that?" Clara asked, a curious smile playing on her lips. "The person who wrote it," he said. "I just had to look past the uniform to see her." Clara gazed out at the city skyline. It was no longer a wall of unattainable lights, but a landscape of possibility. Her past was not an anchor, it was a foundation. She had walked through the fire of betrayal and emerged not burned, but forged. She was Isa Clara Rossi, and she was finally, truly home. In the end, it wasn't about money or fame. It was about integrity. Isa Clara Rossi's story reminds us that circumstances don't define our worth. The world may see a waitress, a cashier, a janitor, but inside each of us can lie a mind capable of changing the world. It's a powerful lesson in courage, the courage to speak truth to power, even when your voice trembles. Gideon Sterling thought he had all the answers, but the most important truth came from the one person in the room everyone else had been trained to ignore. What hidden talents and forgotten dreams lie dormant inside you, waiting for the right moment to speak up? If this story inspired you or made you think, give this video a thumbs up. It helps the channel grow. Share it with someone who needs to hear that their voice matters. For more stories about hidden heroes and incredible twists of fate shaping our world, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next.